I'm going to engage with Muhammad's first encounter with the angel Gabriel in the cave at Hira. And this can be found in Sahih Bukhari number 3. Now, I'm going to link it in the description box, the full thing, because it's long. So I'm going to pick out the necessary parts to help us understand what happened and how Muhammad reacted. And I'm going to cover some more material as well. But in Sahih Bukhari number 3, it says, "Then the angel came to him and asked him to read. The prophet replied, 'I do not know how to read.' The prophet added, 'The angel caught him forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it any more. He released me again and asked me to read, and I replied, 'I do not know how to read.' Thereupon he caught me again and pressed me a second time till I could not bear it any more. He then released me and again asked me to read. Again I replied, 'I do not know how to read,' or 'What shall I read?' Thereupon he caught me a third time, and he pressed me and he released me, and he said, 'Read. In the name of your Lord, who has created all things that exist, he created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is the most gracious.'" So here we have Muhammad supposedly encountering an angel, and the angel squeezes him, grabs him, and squeezes him 3 times very forcefully, and he tells him to read, and Muhammad says, of course, he can't, and then he ultimately does. But the point is that we have an act of violence here, this forcefulness. And, if you look at the prophets before Muhammad, although I don't think Muhammad was a prophet, but nevertheless, the prophets before Muhammad, whenever the angels would come or a message would come, the angel would always say, do not be afraid, do not fear. There was never an act of violence with regards to providing a message. And yet we see here the act of violence with the angel or being squeezing Muhammad. And I want to also say that, after Muhammad left, he ran home to Khadijah, and he asked her to hide him because he was scared to death with the experience that he had. Then he explained it to Khadijah what happened, and then she says, "Look, let's go to my cousin." And he explains it to the cousin as well. And he says, where is it? He said, "Oh, my nephew, what have you seen?" Allah's messenger described whatever he had seen. This is the same one who keeps the secrets, the angel Gabriel, whom Allah had sent to Moses. So this cousin of Khadijah says that the entity is Gabriel, whom Moses encountered. But we, like I said, the prophets in the Old Testament, the New Testament, that they never experienced violence with regards to the forcefulness that happened to Muhammad. Now, of course, one could make the argument, of course, with regards to John the Baptist's father, Zechariah, but with him being struck mute. But that was only because he did not believe the message that the Lord had sent. But that's not an act of violence. That's an act of judgment based on Zechariah's unbelief. But I want to also make mention of what happens after this with regards to when Muhammad is asleep. And this can be found in Ibn Ishaq's Life of Muhammad, page 106. Muhammad is dealing with nightmares, and this is what it says. It says, "So I read it, and he departed from me, and I awoke from my sleep, and it was as though the words were written on my heart. He, now one of God's creatures, was more hateful to me than an ecstatic poet or a man possessed. I could not even look at them. I thought, woe is me, poet or possessed. Never shall Quraysh say this of me. I will go to the top of a mountain, and I will throw myself down, that I may kill myself and gain rest. So that I went forth and to do this. So then when I was halfway up the mountain, I heard a voice from heaven saying, 'O Muhammad, thou art the apostle of God, and I am Gabriel.'" So here we have him dealing with the nightmares of this first encounter. And Muhammad's in so much despair that he determines within himself to commit suicide. Muhammad's in so much despair that he wants to end his life. So the point is that the people around Muhammad, they should not have declared him to be a prophet. They should have sought help for the man. In all honesty, he needed psychiatric help. I mean, he was to the point of despair where he thought it would be better to end his own life than to deal with the horror that he saw with regards to his first encounter with the demon in the cave. And with that being said, I want to bring your attention to the biblical examples of what happened when people encountered demons or unclean spirits. The first example is in Mark chapter 5, verse 2 through 5. It says, as soon as he got out of the boat, this is speaking of Jesus, he got out of the boat, a man with an unclean spirit came out of the tombs and met him. He lived in the tombs, and no one was able to restrain him anymore, not even with a chain, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but had torn the chains apart and smashed the shackles. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. So here we see, of course, this superhuman strength, but we also see this self-harm with the cutting of the stones. So we see, the demons inflicting punishment and violence upon the victims of the possession. I want to bring your attention to another text. In Mark chapter 9, verse 20 through 22, it says, so they brought the boy to him. This is speaking of Jesus. They brought a boy to Jesus. When the spirit saw him, it immediately threw the boy into convulsions. He fell down to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. So here we have him having what appears to be a seizure. And it says, how long? And Jesus says, how long has it's been happening to him? And Jesus asked his father. From childhood, he said, and many times it has thrown him into the fire, into the water to destroy him, but it could not do anything. And then he asked him to have compassion on him. So here, once again, the demon, after the boy convulses, of course, throws him into the fire and throws him into the water, trying to end his life. So here we have the demon trying to kill the boy. But, this really shouldn't be any surprise, because there's even Islamic reports that Muhammad saw a light and sounds with regards to his revelation. And this really shouldn't come as a shock, because if we look in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14, it says, and no wonder, for Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So I would say that Muhammad did not see Gabriel in the cave, but in fact he came face to face with Satan himself. And I want to bring another verse to the attention of Muslims with regards to the messages that Muhammad had. And it's in Galatians chapter 1, verse 8. It says, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel that contrary to what you have heard from us, he should be accursed. And so why do I bring it up? I bring it up because there is nothing in the Quran that actually coincides with the Jewish and Christian scriptures, because honestly it contradicts the Jewish and Christian scriptures at every possible turn. And before the Muslims throw a fit and say that the Bible has been corrupted, the Quran actually affirms the preservation, inspiration, and authority of the Jewish and Christian scriptures.